What's good, Pod Squad? It's your girl, Synovia Williams. What's good, Pod Squad? Y'all already know it. I'm not going to tell y'all. This is like the third time I've done this tape. Take three. What's going on, Pod Squad? It's your girl, Synovia. I'm doing something new today with two of my sisters, Jewel and Krystle. You guys know I've mentioned before, if you've listened in some of our previous episodes, about the Kingdom Marriage Wives, basically a marriage ministry that we have. So last night was our topic on dating with a purpose, how to date your spouse, and just dating in your marriage, how crucial and vital, that is to longevity in your marriage. So listen up, listen in. I'm gonna let you guys come inside and hear what our marriage session went, how our marriage session went last night. Fix it, Jesus. Tongue is all twisted up. But listen in, y'all. Hello.
Hey, Keisha,
Hello. Welcome back, everyone. We are doing part 2 of our date night with the Kingdom Marriage Wives Unfiltered, but this is our marriage edition. Last week we did the single ladies edition, so tonight we're catering to the married women and talking about date night. We have the ladies from our private group on here as well, and I'm joined by my beautiful sisters, Krystle and Jewel. I'm excited because we're going to do some icebreakers. We're going to drop some Bible verses and scriptures on you guys, and we're also just going to kind of just let it flow with the notes that we've taken about how to keep it spicy, how to keep it exciting, like just how to be intentional about dating your spouse. So let's get right into it. I'm actually going to open it up to Jewel. She's going to drop some jewels. Come on with the jewels, Jewel.
Come on, Jewel, and drop them gems.
Right.
Okay. Hi, y'all. Happy date night. Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend. Everything's going good. If not, the weekend ain't over. You can throw together a last minute date night if you need to, So I want to start off with the icebreaker today. And I want to ask you guys, when was the last official date you and your spouse went on? And official means like intentional. Like, when was the last time you actually put in some intention into your date, just to kind of keep it spicy? And if it's not your spouse, it could be like, when you actually went on a purposeful, like a meaningful date. So I'll go first since, I kicked it off. So Saturdays, me and my husband we unofficially claim Saturdays to be our date night. So last night we went out to, we go to like these car club things. We do like a car club because we have a Charger at 392. We go like to all these different little car meets and stuff. So that's what consists of our date night. Kind of went like, it was raining, so then we went out to dinner, and but we make it a purpose, like, what are you gonna wear? Like, what time do I need to be ready? What are you gonna do? Not just, because I'll throw on a hat, throw on some jeans or something real quick and go, but actually keeping it spicy, like that excitement about date night. So I was like, what time do we need to be ready? What time are we leaving? Because he works on Saturday, so it's fun with planning and, getting all this, the excitement of it. I done went to Forever 21 and spent a bunch of money I didn't need to yesterday. But it was really, it turned out to be really, really nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, me and my husband, we have been intentional about planning every Friday for date night, especially since the quarantine. Prior to the quarantine, Friday nights used to be our date night either way. We would either go to dinner in a movie, whatever, out for ice cream, it did not matter, but Fridays were our night. Then after quarantine happened and the world just kind of stopped, we kind of got away from that for a while. So I had been intentional about my prayers, like asking God, how can we get creative in this time since the world is kind of open, kind of not open? And now every Friday, one thing God dropped in my spirit, now every Friday, we pick a meal that we're going to cook together, we're in the kitchen together, and we'll pick a movie. So it's like Netflix and chill. Like one night we made pizzas together, in the kitchen. One night we did kebabs on the grill. This past Friday, we ate out. We had Texas Roadhouse. I went and got the canvases for us to paint, for us to have a paint night also, and caught a movie on Netflix. just to be creative with it. Like you could do body painting, you know, have desserts. Like if you're intentional about it, I just say include God. Like you say, be intentional with your date night. So Friday nights are date nights, and we just try and we'll switch up. Like, okay, we had this last week. What do you have a taste for this week? You picked this movie last week. Let me pick the movie this week. You know, and just including each other. But even something that simple, you know, just to be intentional about it. So yeah, Friday nights is our date night.
So with mine, y'all know I gotta be real creative. Yeah. Look, I was just telling my sisters Jewel and Sonovia how date night over here requires a lot of intentionality and being creative, okay? Because if you guys don't know me personally, I do have 10-month-old twins. I have a 3-year-old and I have an 8-year-old. And so prior to COVID, I didn't have, I had my twins October of last year. So we haven't even had the chance to really step out after having these babies. But prior to having the babies, we didn't even really have a schedule. We would kind of just feel like, you know, you feel like something's missing. Like, hey, when was the last time we went on a date night? We need to do a date night. We do try to get out at least every month. Do a date night every couple of months. We try to get away and have an overnight sitter where we can just stay the night out. But I can say the last very intentional date night was a challenge. I have a life group that I get with. We meet every other Sunday. And right now we're in power down mode. But the last time we met, we had a challenge that we needed to plan a date night. And so what me and my husband did, we did have to get creative. We set up our backyard. We did dinner and we just sat outside, and we were so detached from social media and from our phones. We ended up being outside for hours just talking, my husband telling me things that I've never heard him say. And we've been together for 13 years. We'll be married for 7 years in about a month. And so to know my husband for so long and have that time to just really connect and chat and do our date night, it was such a blessing. And we did it here all at home. Our kids were asleep and we were really able to connect and just talk. And that's a whole nother level of intimacy. So that happened about a couple of months ago. Now in regards to like date night, we haven't been able to step out, like I said, with COVID. But every once in a while, we'll say, hey, tonight we're going to just do dinner and watch a movie, or do dessert and watch a movie. The kids are asleep, so we'll get together and do date night that way.
Chris will be like, get a baby some Benadryl. We have a date night tonight.
Look, I'll be in there like, did everybody have their melatonin? Everybody got their diffusers on? I don't want to see y'all till the morning, okay? But look, we got to get creative over here because we got the littles for real.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness. That's true. Oh my.
Anybody else want to share? Ladies, anybody else want to share? Don't be shy, y'all.
They say they just taking notes tonight, sis. But that was good. Yeah, definitely be intentional, you know, about your date nights and plan them out, because it makes a big difference. If you're intentional about it, like just pick one day of the week that you know you guys can commit to that, even if it's just for a couple hours before bed, or just to go out and, you know, grab something, even if it's to go at this point. But at least being intentional about your date nights makes the world of a difference, especially after the I do's. And even to piggyback on that, Jewel, is that all we had for the icebreaker? Because that was good, though.
Yes, that's what I had for the icebreaker.
That was good. That's exciting about being intentional with your dates. Sissy, Krystle, I heard you got some Bible verses you want to share.
Yes, I got some Bible verses. So in Deuteronomy, specifically Deuteronomy 24:5, it actually talks about how God he gives an example of how when men are married, they are actually given an entire year where they don't go to war. They're supposed to use that whole year to just sit up under their wives. And so that was really big to me. I remember going through this huge rough patch on the topic of date night with my husband, because I felt as if I was the one always scheduling date nights. I was the only one that cared about date nights. I was the only one setting up babysitters. I was the only one, excited for this. Now, a lot of that had a lot of feelings to go with it. He also needed time with me and was excited about date night, but because of how he handled date night and not really taking the lead with planning date night, it made me feel as if he wasn't excited. So I found this Bible verse. I actually reached out to a friend of mine for some advice on the topic of just planning dates, being more intimate, being more intentional. And she gave me this, and I took it and ran with it. And I was like, man, if God says that he wants husbands to just basically not go to work for a whole year and just sit up under their wives and go on date nights and learn them and go through all the different seasons together, I feel that he wants us to prioritize time set aside with date night. So Deuteronomy 24:5. I also have 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Or do y'all want to read Deuteronomy 24:5? I can read it to y'all. Which y'all want to do? Y'all want to read it?
If you want, for those who don't have their Bibles out. I feel like we in church. If you don't have your Bibles out, look at the screen.
Let me know when you get there.
Right.
I don't have a projector, but look, I will read it to you. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 5.
You hear everybody turn your pages. Fix it.
Yes. What the pastor say? When you get there, say amen.
Mm-hmm.
If you need more time, more time.
It says, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 5, a newly married man must not be drafted into the army or be given any other official responsibilities. He must be free to spend 1 year at home, bringing happiness to the wife he has married. Man, that
bringing happiness part just gave me chills.
I mean, and I think some versions even say like sitting up under her bosom. Like,
ooh.
I mean, that it's just to me that said so much, because for husbands, you got to set some time aside. You got to say, hey, with my husband, it's a little bit harder because he has a barbershop. And so he's constantly working, constantly cutting hair. Sometimes he's in the shop late. And to me, I'm like, okay, I understand that God has positioned you to provide, but for one of those weekends, for one of those Saturdays, can you get out a little bit earlier and be intentional and say, hey, I want to spend some time with you? It's biblical. God wants husbands to do that. So I love that Bible verse, y'all. The next one I have is 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. And it says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered.
Amen.
This was big to me. A friend of ours brought this up to us when we were just not seeing eye to eye on some subjects, and this really made me be like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to have to worry about what you're doing, husband. Let me focus on what I got to do, because if you don't do what God's told you to do with me, I belong to God first before I belong to you. And if you don't handle me with sensitivity and understand me when I need that additional understanding, then your prayers are hindered. Yeah. That's big to me. Nowhere in the word of God does it say, wives, your prayers will be hindered. It says husbands' prayers will be hindered if they don't handle us with sensitivity. And so I needed him to handle me with sensitivity when I said, I need my time with you. I want to feel prioritized. I don't want you to be, you know, picking the latest movie that playing at AMC because your last haircut is at the crack of dawn. You know, I need you to prioritize and say, hey, I'm blocking out my schedule for my wife because it's important to her and it's important to me, but I know she needs this time. This is what's going to keep her ticking. This is what's going to keep her, you know, keep the marriage spicy. Me taking time out to understand her needs, to understand this is what makes her tick. This is what keeps her going. So 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, big eye opener to me. And my last one is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8.
Peter kicking that knowledge.
For me, I just turned the next page, literally, like we still in the same place. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, and it says, most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other. Like just that right there. For love covers a multitude of sins. That's it. Like, most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other. For love covers a multitude of sins. How many times do we go past months and months and haven't even taken the time to date each other? We haven't taken the time to flirt with our husbands. We haven't taken the time to dress ourselves up and love our spouses the way that we should. When we do that, it says right here that it covers a multitude of sins. We're able to forgive our husbands easier when we're spending more time and we're pouring more into our marriages through date night. So overall, those were just three. I have so many other verses, but those were just three that I know are going to give us a really good dinner, plus dessert, plus appetizers,
plus morning sunrise breakfast
with the salsa.
Right.
Y'all, those three verses right there are really going to give you some good foundation on the strength of how God wants us to date. And in churches, they don't talk about this. They don't talk about dating. I mean, I know the church I went to for over 10 years. I think I went to one women's retreat that we talked a little bit about dating, but I do feel that God wants us to keep it spicy. He wants us to keep it hot. He wants us to say, hey, we're setting aside time to date. We're setting aside time to love each other. We're doing exactly what Deuteronomy says. My husband can't take a year off of work now, but I do feel that every month or so, he should be able to say, hey, this is my wife's time. I'm blocking it out. Don't call me for no haircut. Don't say I need help with this. I don't want to hear it. This is her time.
Right.
So
that is good.
I like how you got, word to reference that, because ain't nothing like God's works. We all know that is the truth. But I think many people, many couples, they forget about dating. Like everything goes down the drain after they say I do. It's like you're excited when you're dating, when you're single. Yeah. You're excited when you're still somewhat dating, when you're engaged. And it's like after you say I do, everyone has gotten comfortable and still not doing their part. So one of the healthiest things in marriage to keep it thriving is, what did you used to do before you said I do? Show that excitement, get that spice back. If y'all were, for those, I get it, times are different now. Some of us have older kids. Some of us still have young kids. Some of us, our jobs and time doesn't always permit. So if you can't do it weekly, at least be intentional about doing something maybe once a month. If you can't or don't have the funds to travel out of town, one thing me and my husband used to do, again, before COVID, was even just get a hotel here locally. Sometimes just a change of scenery, a change of environment, and just to be intentional about that. It wasn't getting a hotel and going out to eat. We would literally get a hotel, one that would have the little kitchenette on the inside, cook dinner there, have one of the rooms with the fireplaces in there. So it's so many ways you can get creative. And I'm a firm believer of the things us as wives are looking for our husbands to do. A lot of times God will drop that in our spirit for us to initiate it first. And we do get sometimes those feeling like, well, why he can't do it? Like, he the man. I want him to surprise me. Well, sometimes God sets it where, okay, and here's one thing I was telling my mom, because she was like, I think a healthy marriage needs to be 100% on both ends. And I was like, that sounds good, but that's not always true. So because, and what God had been dealing with me about, the times that your husband can't give 100%, you got to pick up that slack. Like, you got to carry his cross. You got to fill the gap. You got to stand in the gap for him. So if you come into a marriage thinking it's always going to be 100% or 50-50, I don't like to put a number on it, because somebody's going to fall short in some way, shape, or form throughout that covenant, throughout that union. And if you have that mindset, oh, I'm putting in my 50%, but he's not, or I'm putting in 100%, but he's not, there are going to be times where he's able to pick up your slack. So in certain seasons, you got to be okay with picking up your spouse's slack, be okay with starting first, be okay with initiating it first. Although we have our roles as wives, and sometimes I feel like our role can be tougher, if I'm being honest, but there's a lot of responsibility on the husbands too that they have to deal with. Yeah. And there's sometimes they're going on, you never know what the other may be dealing with if you're not in tune with God first. You know, so I'm always seeking God, like, okay, what's going on in his head? What's going on? What can I do to help him pick up the slack for times he's having a bad day, or times I feel like he's not initiating something? And if we're just intentional about, okay, this may be a season where I have to put in maybe a little more than 100% in this season, because you will have your moments where you can't give 100, and you're going to be happy when your spouse can come. A healthy relationship balances each other out. Don't come into a marriage thinking it needs to be 100, or 50-50, because listen, y'all talking to somebody that's about to be 20 years in come November. 25, we've been together, but 20 years married this November. There are times where we both felt like we were putting in 100%, and times where I felt like I was putting in more, and times he may have felt like he was putting in more. And you got to be okay. Thriving marriage, a successful marriage. I don't even want to say successful, because no marriage is like completely successful. It's always progressing. It's always thriving. It's always evolving. It's always growing. But you got to be okay with, there will be times where you're picking up the slack for that. So even with dating, Krystle, I know you were saying like the things that you want your husband to be intentional about. And sometimes we're in that season or in that situation where we have to initiate it first. We have to set the tone first. And then our husbands, believe it or not, they may not say anything, but they recognize what we're doing, or God will then drop in their spirit for them to and pass the baton to them. You know, and we got, that's again, that submissive spirit. You got to be okay with that. I know we get in this mindset of, well, this is supposed to be his role. He did this before we got married. Now he don't take me out and he don't do this. Okay, well, why don't you initiate it first? Why don't you get dressed up for him? Like, I have to remind myself, and ladies, I don't know if y'all can relate. There's sometimes I have to remind myself, like, get cute when you come to bed, because I know my husband get tired of seeing me with the bonnet and the big t-shirt and all. Like, you got to still keep it spicy. What attracted him to you, you know, when you guys were first dating? I'm not saying put on lingerie every night that you come to bed, but how many of us just throw our hair up in a bonnet, or, you know, and put on this big raggedy holy t-shirt, you know, and just don't give it any other thought? But the same way we want him to take initiative for things is the same way we too need to step up and be like, okay, when's the last time let me put the head bonnet aside tonight. Let me come to bed looking kind of cute, kind of decent. Let me initiate this. Let me start this. Let me start that. So I do believe just being intentional about, sometimes you got to set the tone. Sometimes you got to start it. Sometimes you have to take the lead. And then when you take the lead, then God will drop in your husband's spirit and connect it to where the dots are connected. You know, there's no gaps. There's no open voids there anymore.
Also, to add to that, you know, as far as if the husband does plan something, even though it might not be like something he's like, oh, I don't even know if I'm gonna like this, you know, don't already shut his idea or his thought down. Just be open to it, because you know what? It means a lot to him. So if he sees that you're interested, like, oh man, babe, you was interested in that? Oh, I should have been asked you, or, you know, I should have been brought you here, you know? So that's just allowing yourself to open up. Marriages change, people change, you know, your interests change, things change. So what you guys used to do, you know, 5-10 years down the line before, or, you know, just even a couple of years ago, it might not be the same enticement. It might not provide the same, you know, fulfillment when you guys go out. So keeping it keeping it spicy, keeping it interesting, you know, try things new. And if it doesn't work out and y'all feel like, okay, yeah, we ain't gonna go there no more, you know, it still brings you guys together to even, you know, attempt to, because it could be something just totally lame. You be like, really, this is what he done brought me to? You know, but to him, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take her, I'm gonna, you know, so his efforts don't go unnoticed. And you know what, even though it was kind of lame or it was kind of whack, whatever, still random acts of kindness. Hey babe, thanks for planning that date night. Love you. You know, something, you know, just simple as that can just set the tone. So like, okay, I did this last week. Well, let me see if she wants to go here. You know, so he's challenging himself to step his game up.
Right. I like that. I know certain times, like with my husband, like he's into sports. I'm not. I know some wives like love football with their man. I'm sorry, he did not get that wife. God did not bless him with that wife. I don't know sports like that. But there are times that I will put my differences and my feelings and wants aside. And when he wants to watch football, I sit on the couch with him like, I don't have a clue what's going on. But I know he enjoys that. I take me out of it, because the same way I may want to watch a chick flick or a Lifetime movie, and he's like, you know, here we go again. So the same way he can do those things for me, I think we need to do those things for our spouses as well. So Jewel, if he take you to the racetrack, or just enjoy it, just be cute with your lip gloss and be popping. You know, there is plans, and like you said, just that random act of kindness, like that gesture alone, again, will make your man feel included. Like, okay, she appreciates that, even if you really didn't. I'm not saying put on the front, but it can prevent a lot of heartache or a lot of feelings. Like, well, I tried to do something and you ain't want to do what I did, so let's nip that in the bud and, you know, take turns with it.
And the main purpose out of the whole date night, you know, it could be the whole facade, the show and everything, but the main purpose that we're trying to get out the date night is connection with each other, that time that we have with each other. I don't care if we sit in a room, we both quiet, guess what? We're still next to each other, you know, we still have that connection.
Especially be with your spouse and put the cell phones and computers and tablets and laptops away. Like, spend true quality time together. Like, tomorrow's not promised. Be intentional. If you can't go anywhere, you can't go out, can't get a hotel, whatever, just spend true quality time together. There are times I'm working all the time, and I work from within the house and he works out of the home. When he comes home, I try and shut work off. You know, let me put my computer away. Let me turn my phone on silent. I may check it here and there, but I'm not glued to my devices, because God's like, hey, I'm giving you this time to be with your spouse right now, even if it's limited, even if y'all not all out being fancy and dressed up like you would like to do, take advantage of this time that you have now. Yeah. That's almost like appreciate your manna that you have now. God's like, I give you manna. Don't worry about tomorrow. What you gonna do with this manna today?
Exactly. I think the gratitude is big, just looking at what we do have versus what we're limited to, you know, and intentionality is just so big. It's the foundation, you know. Prior to even getting married, you need to be intentional about dating, and it doesn't stop there. Because if you don't learn how to be intentional before you're married, you're gonna have a lot to learn once you get married, because once the kids start to come, you got to be intentional. Like, hey, this one got soccer, this one over here got piano. Okay, so that leaves these 2 days for date night. Let's be intentional. 2 weeks ahead of time, a week ahead of time. This is what we're doing. We're going to a movie, or we're going to go do this. And then I did want to also touch on, you know, who plans the date night. I know for me, I ended up being the one getting the babysitter, making sure everybody's packed up, making sure I was ready at this time. And then my husband was able to just get off work, come home, get dressed and be ready. And y'all, to be honest, I started feeling like, no, this is too much work. And I literally started telling my husband, like, oh no, I'm good. We don't need to do a date night. And he was like, what do you mean? What's going on? You know? And I'm like, because I got to do all the work all the time. I got to do the babysitter. I got to pack up the kids. I got to do this. So after that, I started to realize that, date night means a lot to him too. So he started to pick up the pace. He's like, hey, I got babysitter for this night. I planned this. I made reservations. Then I really started to see that, he needs that too. And so we got to a good place where he was like, okay, you can plan date night, or okay, this time I plan date night. So we need to make sure that we're not making it a chore, that it ends up being a fun thing for both people, you know. And this is even important before you get married, you know, setting that foundation, making it firm when you're dating, that being intentional, who's giving the ideas about date nights once you guys start getting more serious. I know at the beginning it's, you know, the guy pursuing and taking you out on dates, but once you start getting more serious, getting close to marriage, you should kind of take turns. And then once you're married, then we already know that we got to be intentional. We know we got to be creative. We know we got to take turns in order to make sure that one person doesn't feel that this is a job and a chore, and the other person is just being able to just coast by. Both people need to be able to feel wanted, to feel valued, to not feel not taken for granted, and both people are having fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah.
The main thing, like you said, is being intentional about it. For those that are not married, you know, they know what to set the standard for, set the tone for now. And the biggest thing is, after you say I do, be intentional about dating your spouse, because you don't want to get too far into your marriage to the point where, and that's also when the enemy comes in and temptation comes in, you know, because it's been a while since y'all did anything together and had a good time together and went out together. So if you keep it spicy, you know, or at least be creative with it. And that is something you guys, you know, women, we can go to God with, like, Lord, give me some ideas to be creative of different things to do with my spouse, you know, when it comes to dating again, or just keeping it spicy there, because God wants us to be, you know, fruitful, you know. So I think if you get too far into it to where you guys aren't doing that, that allows the enemy to come in, temptation to come in. You know, you feel like, oh, me and him ain't been out in a minute, or he feels like, oh, she don't tell me these things, you know, we haven't been out in a minute. So to avoid that, if you can't do something weekly, at least try and do something monthly. And if you can't go out, it's not always about money, you know, like we were saying, how Krystle mentioned, just sitting out in the backyard. Y'all know I told you about the time me and my husband were just sitting on our porch for our rental property, but we were just outside, you know, and looking up at the stars, just talking, like, those little things, like, cherish those moments, make the most of those moments. And if you're not intentional about it, like I said, next thing you know, it'll be weeks that have passed, months that have passed. And some couples, believe it or not, sadly enough, it's years that have passed since they were intentional about doing something together.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to get back into it, but it's not impossible, especially if you include God with it. Like, God, help us in this area. This is where we're weak at, you know. Help me to satisfy his love language and his desires. Help him to satisfy mine. You know, drop it in my spirit what he needs. Drop my heart's desires in his spirit. Yeah. Like, God wants to be in, he wants to be in the midst of all of that. So instead of always trying to do it ourselves and feel like, I just can't get through to my husband, I can't get through to him, and next thing you know, now something so simple or what could have been innocent, the enemy's like, cool, I get to come in here and manipulate this and turn this into something bigger than what it should have been.
Yeah, because we get caught up of, I'm gonna let him plan it. No, I'm gonna wait for him to say something, you know. And if we could have easily just spoken, like, hey, you want to go catch something to eat, go get something to eat, catch a movie, like, it could have been easy, something like, or do you want me to go grab you something while I'm coming home? Like, it could have been an easy spark. But once we get caught up on, like, man, I've done planned the 12th date, I done did this and I did that, you know, that's just the enemy attacking us to, like, okay, I'm not going to do it, you know. And that's what he wants. But you know, like Zenobia said, you know, we need to be intentional about our prayers, like, pray like, God, let's his turn, God, let him plan something, or let him know that, okay, I need to do XYZ for my wife, or, you know, put it on God and let him kind of help navigate the situation, because it does make a difference. And when you pray about something like intentional like that, and you actually see, like, oh man, I just prayed about that. Like,
yes,
he brought me flowers. Oh, he knew I like flowers, you know. But I prayed, like, okay, you know, it'll be nice to get some flowers, God, or, you know, show some appreciation or something.
Yes.
Boom, baby, God deliver flowers to the job.
God is like, oh,
what Jesus for my flowers.
Right. Good. I know one thing that God has been sharing with me sometimes with, you know, especially since we've been doing this with the Kingdom Marriage Wives, is sometimes we have to ask God to show us how to be an example, to show our husbands how to properly love us. some men don't know, because believe it or not, that may have been something as a young boy they weren't taught. And, you know, we're quick to point the finger. They're not doing this. They don't tell me they love me. They don't show any affection. They're not touchy like I want. Maybe they weren't raised in that type of home, or maybe they didn't get that. They didn't have that type of example to follow. So even as a grown man, the things that we think our spouses should know, believe it or not, as sad as it is, some of them truly don't know how, because they didn't have that example, or there was some way, you know, all of us have something that we went through even as a child that we brought into our marriage for how we are, how we operate today. So before we point the finger at our husbands, he doesn't do this, like, he doesn't tell me he loves me. Well, what if his father never told him that? Or he never heard his father tell his mother that publicly. So he just assumed, okay, I know my mom loves my dad and my dad loves my mom, but they don't talk like that. So they just assume that's okay. It's always deeper. And if we go to God with that, not only will he reveal that, but he will show you how to properly overcome those issues. Because God wants for you to have your heart's desires. You know, God didn't set us up in marriage. Yes, our marriages are supposed to be purposeful, but it's not like we just got a job, like, okay, husband, we got to do this and conquer the kingdom today, but we're not attracted to each other. We don't love each other. Like, no, God still wants you to have all of that too, but when he's taken out of it, again, that's when the enemy has time to just take it all left. So I think we just need to be intentional, again, about spending time with our spouses, even if we're waiting on him to initiate. What if he doesn't know that we feel the way we feel? If we don't open up and say anything, and I do encourage you, before going to him with that conversation or anything, take it to God. God, fill my mouth with the words to say. Open his heart to receive this conversation that I desire to have with him. Because if you just go to him like, you don't never take me out, you don't do this, you don't do that. Now you popping off and sounding like somebody mama, like, I wouldn't want to take you out either. It is the way, our approach, the way we handle it. So even though we may feel that way, like I said, if we take it to God first, not only will he set our tone for us, he will fill our mouth with the right words, and he will allow your spouse to have an open heart to receive the very conversation that you're trying to have.
Yeah.
God has to be included in everything, because if
everything. Not, include him in every step of the way.
Everything. This was good. Benefits of dating.
Yes. And then another thing that I started to see in my home once we started to be intentional about date night is my daughter, she's 8. My husband started doing daddy-daughter date night with my daughter. And it's a big thing. My husband is always the one having to plan it because he's the adult. You know, he may give her a few options. Hey, we got this, we got this, we got this. Which one of these do you want to do? We got these 2 places to eat and these 2 places to do dessert. They usually go to 3 different places. And it's a big thing. You know, she's like, Mommy, what do you think I should wear? Should I wear this dress? Can I wear your lip gloss? Can you help me with my hair? What, you know, and so you start to see changes within your own home where your kids are now setting standards about date night before they even start dating. So now when she starts dating, she's like, oh, this guy got to open the door. Oh, my daddy always pay for food. What's going on? You got to pay. You know, you got to open my door. You got to court me, because that's what my dad did to me. And I see him doing it to my mom. And so those are just some benefits that I started to see in my home, that my kids are starting to see date night. Even my son is like, Mommy, I want to take you on a date. You know, he's 3, you know, so we try to do our date night at home. Like, hey, it's just me and you. We're going to pop popcorn. He tries to be sweet and get my cup for me and just, you know, pull out my hair for me. So I start to see changes within my home. And I just had to piggyback off of that, Zenobia, with, you know, what our kids see, and that's how they're going to pour into their relationships and into their homes and into their marriages. We wonder, you know, why our husbands don't say certain things, or they're not affectionate, or they're not being intentional. Those are generational. They may not have seen their dad do that.
Yeah.
So start doing it now. Be a generational curse breaker and start implementing date night. There's so many benefits for both sons and daughters.
That's good, sis. And one thing God is speaking to me now with, as you were saying that, those of you who are married or looking to get married, once children are involved, let them see that you guys are still dating each other, because that's like, that's setting that example. if the daughter sees that, she's like, hey, my parents, they've been married 50-something, 70-something years, you know, whatever, but I saw them date. I heard them always say, I love one another. That's setting an example for them. The way we could break generational curses is the same tone that we could set to create generational blessings. Let those sons see as well. So don't hide that from your kids. And I'm not saying you hide it for a reason, but not that, like, let them know, hey, every Friday is mommy and daddy, that's our date night. Or every third Friday of the month, that's our date night. Because if you include the kids with that, and I'm not necessarily saying include them to take them, but include them with that, because that's setting a tone for them. That's setting a standard for them. And therefore, when they start having their relationships, the things that maybe we didn't do as a wife, or we feel like our husbands didn't do as a husband, we set the tone now. So therefore, when our kids get married and their kids, they can be like, I always heard my dad and mom say I love you to each other. They always spent time, you know, if not every weekend, a couple weekends a month, like let the kids see that. So because we may think like it's no big deal. And Krystle, even with you guys doing it now with your kids so young, that's going to sit in their spirit and go with them, you know, forever. Like, I saw my parents do this. And even with my children pretty much grown, 17 and 20, they can be like, you know, I can remember my parents every other weekend out saying, you know, it was their time. They left us home. Like, that was their time together.
Yeah.
If you do that and include them and make that known, that goes on with them too. So therefore, they have the tone standard to set when they have their relationships.
What that feel like to leave them at home? You don't have to find no
girl,
baby.
everything.
I
remember
like some of that.
Child, when they were like kind of old enough, it was more so like, okay, we need to be home a certain amount of time. But like now with the ages now, at 20 and 17.
Yeah, you like.
Yeah, we out. We don't say nothing. Sometimes we done came
Y'all
home.
can go overnight. Y'all can take a whole weekend.
We have been on cruises while they've been home. Like, I got adults. I don't have little kids anymore. So it's an amazing feeling to do that. But I want my children to see my parents go out all the time. We have our family time. And then they can honestly say, like, my parents stayed going out together. Like, set that example for them, because you may think it's not a big deal to them, but trust me, say that I love you, you know, to your spouse in front of your kids. Show that gesture in front of your children. So again, they are what they see. They are what they surround themselves with. They are as what they are in their environment. And if we always did those things secretly, like, okay, we had affection, we touched each other and all, but we never really did it in front of the kids, then you're going to have children that think that's okay, and they don't know to tell their spouse they love them. They didn't hear that. They didn't see that example. So it starts with us. If we want that now, and we know that was something that we brought into our marriage, or our spouse brought into the marriage, and we're breaking those generational curses, we also have authority to start generational blessings. It can start with us. I know mine is starting with us, because my household, you know, my dad was military, a little more strict. Like, we knew he loved us and our mom, but because he was more strict, he didn't always verbalize that. It's like, you know that I take care of y'all. But I'm like, no, I want to hear that. Like, let me change the tone for that now. I want to hear that. I want my daughter to hear that. I want her daughter to hear it. I want my son to say it. You know, those type of things. But it starts in the home. So a lot of ways or things that we desire and want, those may be things they didn't get in their household when they were children. So it kind of stuck with them, and they kind of just had that, you know, it's in their bloodline. They don't know any better. And I'm pretty sure it's things that we don't do that we should be doing more of, that maybe, you know, they would like to see. So again, it's taking it to God. You know, what generational curses do we need to be casting out and binding up? What generational blessings can we start? How can show us how to be more intentional with including our children with us, you know, having our date nights and dating intentionally, and just verbalizing how we feel to each other in front of our children as well. Because again, children, we think it's no big deal to them, but they take those things and that goes on with them for the rest of their lives. Same way when you got parents that don't get along. That goes on with your children too. You know, they watch, they heard mommy and daddy arguing all the time, fussing all the time. Children pay attention to parents that aren't, you know, around each other, aren't sleeping in the same rooms. You think children are missing that. No, they see all of that.
They pay attention.
And that scars them, even if they never verbalize that, that scars them on the inside. And they take that with them into their relationships and their marriages, because that's what they were around.
Exactly. Yeah. Dating while you're married is connected to so much. connected to so much. We got to be more intentional about it. We got to keep it hot and spicy. We got to be creative. We got to make sure all of the work doesn't fall on one of us. You know, we got to keep it balanced.
And if the work does fall off on one of you, it's okay. It may just be for a season.
Yes.
Be okay with picking up the slack for your spouse, because there will be seasons where you're lacking and you're going to want to carry your cross. That's where balance comes in at.
Yep.
And you know, you can easily just be like, when you're out, like, oh, I'm glad that you enjoyed this place. You know, maybe next time you should pick something. Let's see what you can come up with. You know, make it fun.
Yeah.
Like, oh, can your place beat my place? You know, just, you know, and then you
like
putting that out there, you're speaking that into the atmosphere. You're actually putting that in his ear, like, okay, all right, I got it, you know. And it could be something that's just as simple as that versus it being like, man, I always got to pick a date night. You know, you set the tone, you change the atmosphere, you take control of it.
One of my friends with her husband, they have a mason jar. And so when they sit down and do their vision board for the year, they actually get popsicle sticks in a little jar and they split it in half. Like she got 20 popsicle sticks and husband got 20. And they have to write on there just some cute date night ideas. They always argue with, you know, when they, oh, I want to go here. Now, I don't want to do that. So they came up with a mason jar idea. They write their ideas down. And then once date night comes, they pick a popsicle stick and whatever it say, that's what they doing. Ain't no arguing about it. You know, ain't no, oh, you picked the messed up place. Now we don't waste our money and our time. They just pick whatever they pick out of the mason jar. So I'm like,
good idea.
It keeps it easy. You looking at that mason jar like, look, we got 50 still left in there. We haven't gone on date night. Pick a popsicle stick. And sometimes it's at home date night. Sometimes it's out on the town date nights. Sometimes it's an overnight, you know, doing an overnight date. So that's just an idea to help y'all if you struggle with who's picking what and how often.
That's good.
That is good.
This was good. Did you ladies have anything else to add? I'm feeling this. No? Well, one thing I do want to say before we do hop off, you guys know I shared this last week and I'm going to share it again, and I'm going to share it again if we do it next week. But being intentional with your fasting. You guys know I told you that God had been dealing with me with fasting. You know, fasting is not new to me, but I've usually when I fast, it's something for myself, not tangible, but like, God, show me this, give me clarity on this, vision on this, strength on this, whatever. All month long, I've been fasting for my marriage, for my husband. So me suffering in the flesh is fasting, you know, for him. And I start my fast again late tonight, early tomorrow morning. 24 hours dry fast. And you guys know I told you the past few weeks I've done 36 hours. One of our ladies is in here in our group decided to join me. Actually, a few decided to join me. They reached out, but one decided to join me last week as well. And she beat me. She did 40 hours of dry fasting. And she was already nervous about doing 24. She's like, I never dry fast. And for those of you who don't know what dry fasting is, that's no water, no liquids, no supplements, no food. You know, most people fast and they'll still have water. No water at all when you're dry fasting. So not only was she skeptical and leery about the 24, I was like, God, dropping her spirit to do 36. Well, she surprised me because sis pulled off a whole 40. But we start our fast again, like I said, today. So anybody who wants to come into agreement, if God leads you to it and drops it in your spirit as well, fast for your spouse. And you'll be amazed at the things he'll show you. You know, she may be fasting for different reasons, but you can fast for someone else. Those of you who are married, fast for them. Those of you who are dating, fast for them. Those of you who are looking, fast for clarity and vision and everything on that. But me fasting for my husband, God has shown me so much. He's now including me in the things that he's doing to him on the inside. The work that he's doing on the inside, God will, you know, drop those things in my spirit. So, and that's because, again, I'm suffering with something in flesh. And God is like, okay, you're giving me an ultimate sacrifice. Here's what I'm going to do to you with that obedience and that sacrifice with what you're given. So I definitely encourage you all, if you have not done so yet, you know, pray and see if God leads you there as well to start fasting for your spouse or significant other, because you'll be amazed at things he shows you and helps you guys stay on one accord and be in agreement and be unified to have a true kingdom marriage. I enjoyed you all tonight.
This was good.
Yes.
It was good. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to stop the recording just in case we have any Q&As. Let me go ahead and stop that.